Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we're going to talk about a really fascinating herb called Motherwort. This is one that is cardiotonic, calming, very good for basically anybody who isn't a pregnant woman. So believe it or not, Motherwort should not be taken by expectant mothers. We'll get into that. Very, very interesting herb, easy to grow. It's one you're going to absolutely find a place for in your herb garden. But before we do, I got some people said, you've been given so many great soup and stew and pizza recipes, a lot of main dishes. Can you do sort of a side dish? Well, sure. I do a lot of side dishes. I love side dishes. I often eat more side dishes than I eat the main course, depending on where I'm eating or whose food I'm eating and my tastes. I thought a real classic, obviously a Southern classic is mac and cheese. Macaroni and cheese actually was popularized by Thomas Jefferson. So it is super associated with the South. America's greatest president was Thomas Jefferson, in my humble opinion, rarely humble opinion. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. Okay, without he and Madison, there'd be no Declaration or Constitution. He was the philosopher upon which America is founded, and he was a truly great president, an incredible farmer. He's one of those that sort of envisioned permaculture and the systems of the design, self-taught in everything. The man was literally self-taught in mathematics, astronomy. He spoke several languages. He was a great diplomat. He was a philosopher. He was a historian. Everything a Southern gentleman should be. And don't believe any of the lies that they tell about him now. I, as a kid, went to Monticello many times and absolutely loved it. They have made this whole myth out of Sally Heming and all that. No one really knows if he had a relationship with her or not. They did some DNA tests, supposedly on her descendants, and they didn't share his DNA. So according to genetics, they probably did not have an affair. She was probably just one of his favorite slaves. He was a slave owner. There's no getting around that. But he was known to be kind. He was not a cruel man. And he probably just took a liking to her and helped fund her, gave her money, made sure she got somewhat of an education and a start in life that was a little bit better than most black women could have had at that time. I know that's a controversial statement, and historians will argue about this for years. But here's what it comes down to as far as I'm concerned. The man founded our nation. He was absolutely brilliant. He was an incredible farmer. He was a foodie. He was an incredibly good cook. He was, his tastes were very French, mixed with English. He was big into cheese. Our whole saying, the big cheese, is because when he became president, he was gifted, I think he was from France, this giant wheel of Emmentaler cheese. big wheel Swiss cheese, basically, that had to be carried on a cart by horses. It was so big. So he was the big cheese. His recipe for macaroni and cheese popularized the dish throughout America. His love of tomatoes taught Americans they could eat tomatoes. Tomatoes are in the nightshade family. They look like many poisonous European herbs. Thomas Jefferson taught Americans they could eat tomatoes. But well beyond that, Southern hospitality. He literally funded, basically, his stay at the White House, his state dinners, when diplomats would come in, when important people in America would come in. Those meals were paid for by himself. And when he went home to Monticello, he continued to do that. He literally went bankrupt welcoming everyone to his table. And in a lot of ways, he was a lot like Donald Trump. President Trump did the same thing. All our other presidents use our tax dollars to pay for their galas and their big parties and their travel. President Trump paid for it out of his own pocket. He didn't take a salary while he was president. He donated it to charities, especially veterans charities. Love him or hate him, he's the only one that hasn't been a parasite on America since Thomas Jefferson. So, let's get into mac and cheese. And let's remember that all people are complex, and they all have their good traits and their bad traits. And to judge any man by one aspect of his character, unless it's Charles Manson or something, is Adolf Hitler, whatever. Okay, to judge any normal man or any great man who did not murder a lot of people or whatever by only their flaws is terrible travesty. You never judge a person by their worst day. Everybody is worthy of redemption. To judge someone by that, by their worst day, essentially, their worst actions at a time of weakness, as opposed to a whole lifetime of, kindness and respect, is really unfair. And I think I think everyone can understand that. I think everyone can recognize that. It's also very wrong to judge a historical figure by the mores of their time. You can't look at someone when slavery was commonplace and very much a part of the culture and judge them as just a slave owner when they did so many other wonderful things. If you did, you'd have to look down on the entire continent of Africa, because it was Africans who were enslaving other Africans and selling them as slaves. Somehow only the white folks in America get the blame. Not even the white folks in England anymore, even though England was the one that opened the slave trade to the Americas. So did the French, by the way. The Native Americans. Native Americans constantly fought wars, captured each other as slaves. Many tribes were cannibalistic. The Aztecs basically ate the Mayans. We don't judge them by that era, by the morals of their time. We judge them by the great cities they built. We judge them by their great artwork and, the good aspects of their culture. It's a huge mistake to take the morals or the ideals, I guess you would say, the mores, whatever, of the present day and assume that everyone should have lived by this for perpetuity throughout history. Because, frankly, our country's pretty daggone messed up. We've slaughtered tens of millions of innocent babies and could still consider ourselves to be a moral nation. We're not. 100 years from now, people are going to look back at America in 2023, this whole children having their genitals cut off and mutilated, and people normalizing it and acting like that makes sense, and they're going to think we were barbaric and weird. Let's look at the good points. Let's look at the good points of ancient Chinese history. Let's look at the good points of ancient Egyptian history. Let's look at the good points of early American history, Native American history, and the present day. And celebrate our heroes. We have to celebrate our heroes, because the examples of the heroes, of the great men, are what instruct and build the great men and women of tomorrow. Boy, that's a long-winded way of getting around to mac and cheese, isn't it? Remember, Thomas Jefferson had the first copper dyes brought in from Italy to make macaroni pasta. And he used essentially a French sauce, a bechamel-based sauce. And as it's been pointed out, yes, macaroni and cheese was probably around before Thomas Jefferson, but he made it very popular in America. And he included nutmeg and made nutmeg incredibly popular. Every early American cookbook, like, the Virginia housewife, um, that was Mary Randolph. She was his wife's sister-in-law. First cookbook written in America. Martha Washington also wrote a cookbook. But Mary Randolph was a hardworking lady who ran a boarding house. She actually invented an ice cream freezer and a refrigerator, believe it or not. That was actually ripped off and stolen from her. I have some family connection to her through marriage and such, not directly related, but I'm very proud to have any association with the lady who wrote the first fried chicken recipe in America. But all those early American cookbooks include a lot of nutmeg. They were crazy about nutmeg back then. So let's talk mac and cheese. And no, let me just say one more thing. Macaroni and cheese is not a vegetable. Okay, that's going to sound really weird to you if you're not from the South. But in the typical Southern buffet or meat and three restaurant, family reunion, any kind of gathering, somehow macaroni and cheese always gets lumped in with the vegetables. You say, you're going to bring a vegetable? Yeah, I'll bring mac and cheese. Okay, it's just a weird cultural thing. I don't know where it comes from. But anyway, we also make a lot of similar casseroles. Like, I'm going to tell you about the macaroni and cheese. You can easily substitute in this exact same recipe, instead of using pasta, use sliced squash. Good yellow crookneck squash, any kind of sweet squash, even zucchini, if you like zucchini. Put a little salt on it, draw the water out beforehand, and then just use it in place of the pasta, and you're going to have an absolutely wonderful dish. So, very basic mac and cheese. Take your pasta, cook it in salt water, drain it off, sit it to the side. Okay? Step one. Step two, make a bechamel sauce. Make a roux of flour and butter. Get your butter going in your pan, melt it down, stir in your butter, okay? Put in your milk, put in your cheese, mix it together and bake it. Okay, they can be that simple. Oh, that's not the way I make it, and that's not the way Thomas Jefferson would have made it. I like to add a little garlic. I will cut a little garlic in that butter before I add the flour. Like I said, he was huge on nutmeg. After you add the milk, you're making your sauce, he would do just a small grate of nutmeg. I think parsley belongs in anything. Also have some Welsh heritage, and I think the taste of beer goes very well in that sauce. Think of a Welsh rarebit. You make that cheese sauce with your roux and either basically equal parts milk to beer. And you can go a little heavier on the beer. You're just going to cook it down to it's thick, so you can add as much as you want. I would use a rich brown ale, something that's not too sour, not too hoppy, and not too sweet. The French side of my family would probably use some white wine. Like I said, parsley is wonderful. Shallot, absolute excellent inclusion. Either with garlic or instead of garlic. Chopped shallots, just sweat them down in that butter before you add your flour. You could go crazy with the herbs. You could put in your basil and oregano and rosemary. You can do it Italian style. You can put in marjoram. You can put in thyme. You can do, French style, any herbs you like. I have made curry flavored mac and cheese before. That is delicious. I've added onions and bacon sweat down into that sauce. Or you can do the bacon on top and have it nice and crispy. What all have I done? Certainly crawfish meat. Crawfish tails are fantastic. Shrimp. Crab meat is an all-time favorite. A lot of people love a lobster mac and cheese. I actually prefer crawfish to lobster. Lobster to me is a little, sweeter. And either one I'd probably want to put some bacon with because, both of them love bacon. The flavors just combine so well. Spinach goes very well in a mac and cheese. I cannot think of mushrooms. Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. When the mushrooms are really coming in here in the mountains, and I've got all these wild oysters and chicken of the woods and maitake's hen of the woods, and So many. Mushrooms are essential. Remember, there are a few mushrooms you never want to combine with alcohol, especially the ink cap mushroom. It will prevent the liver from processing alcohol. You'll get very sick. But lion's mane actually has a flavor sort of like crab or lobster. Fantastic. Lion's mane would be probably my pick, either lion's mane or oyster. Shiitakes, matsukis, whatever you want to use. So, it's that simple. Mix it all together. Uh, Put some breadcrumbs over the top. I always make my own breadcrumbs. If you want to buy seasoned breadcrumbs, I don't care. Do it. Please yourself. Be happy. Put them over the top. Put it in the oven. Bake till brown and bubbly and serve. And it's that simple. It is that simple and it's that good. And I sincerely hope you never buy yellow powder in a box again. Well, I left out the cheese, didn't I? So, of course, it's mac and cheese. Once you get your whatever vegetables, whatever you're including cooked, your pasta's cooked, and you've made your bechamel sauce, add lots of grated cheese, as many different kinds as you have. The more you have, the more you can use. Little bits and ends of cheese. If I was going to use just one cheese, I'd go with a Swiss cheese, Emmentaler, Jarlsberg, something like, certainly blue cheese. Oh my gosh, absolutely, yeah. With crab and bacon, that is fantastic. Good, real blue cheese. Whether Italian, French, or Danish, just a really good salty blue cheese. Remember, blue cheese is salty, so you have to adjust your salt when you're doing that. So always salt and pepper to taste. Cheddar is great. Cheddar is absolutely fine, but I definitely do tend toward the Swiss a lot more, or the blue, or a combination. And cream cheese. Cream cheese is fantastic. Parmesan, Asiago, Pecorino, all of them fantastic. Any cheese and as many cheeses, you know. If you use American cheese, so-called processed American cheese, which is essentially a version of margarine or plastic, and you like that, go for it. Just don't tell me about it. I would much prefer you use some real cheese, and you're going to love it. And of course, you can make it richer by using half and half or cream rather than milk in the sauce. Totally doesn't matter. You can even, if you want it to be a little more rich and luxurious, beat an egg into the milk. You can use evaporated milk. That's really good. So any way you make it, it's sort of a simple throw together dish using whatever you like, and it can be the basis for so many things. Like I said, that is essentially a casserole recipe, and you don't have to make mac and cheese with this recipe. You can put in it absolutely whatever you like. So another good addition, a little pinch of mustard powder. I think that's really nice. I wouldn't go overboard with it. You can go overboard with it, but if I'm using cheddar, a pinch of mustard powder, and a dash of Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire sauce, that is classic. And that's going to give you a very English flavor if you like that. I'm thinking onions and bacon, maybe. Cheddar cheese, a little pinch of mustard, Worcestershire sauce. Leave out the nutmeg if you do that, because well, maybe you like it, but I think for my taste it kind of clashes a little bit with the mustard. Another good option, especially if you're doing crawfish or something like that, Creole seasoning. Just a little, whatever your favorite. I've got a recipe in my book. You can make your own. It's the Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking, or if you like Tony Chachere's, or whatever, the old Paul Prudhomme blend, whatever you like. Slap Your Mama, I think, is one of them. It's just basically a mix of cayenne and garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper, a couple of herbs. It's not very complex, and it really does add just a really good baseline foundation. But I wouldn't overspice it. Unless, now I've done this before, you want to do a really hot pepper one with a lot of jalapenos or habaneros in there, and maybe some corn. I think that's fantastic. You do a mac and cheese with fresh corn cut off the cob or frozen corn, hot peppers. Oh, well, that's fantastic. You can take some diced tomato and put it on top, and it will cook in the oven or under the broiler until nice and brown and bubbly. And that's like a Tex-Mex kind of Western style. Fantastic. Really one of the very best things. But anyway, let's get into this week's herb, now that I'm drooling as I'm trying to talk. Motherwort. Motherwort is Leonurus cardiaca. Well, what does that tell us? Well, one, Leonurus is Latin for lion, essentially, or lion-like, or lion's tail, really, if we want to get really specific. And this member of the mint family, again, oddly enough, was thought by the ancient herbalists to look like a lion's tail. It is a very different looking member of the mint family. But cardiaca means it affects the heart. The name, remember, the Latin name can tell so much about an herb. So this is basically a member of the mint family that looks like a lion's tail and affects the heart. Now, let's move on from there. As best I can tell. It was known to the Greek herbalist. It was certainly used. It really only got to be written about in detail in the 1500s, which is really odd. But it has long had an association with women and especially like premenstrual issues. Don't want to offend anybody, but this is what we used to call hysteria. The old herbalists, the old doctors would call it hysteria, when the lady was getting a little emotional and kind of maybe swooning or maybe getting a little excitable. You know, it's hormones, and a lot of women do have a hard time, and this is one of the go-to herbs. But as I said, it's not to be used for pregnant women. It can actually cause a miscarriage. And it's also a great herb for young mothers who have kids who are driving them crazy and they're getting stressed out. It's also a very nice herb for men for all the same reasons. You know, emotional stress, exhaustion, physical soreness. It has some sedative qualities. It also calms the heart. It slows the heart rate. Good for people that have like high blood pressure and issues like that. Should definitely look into this herb. And I'm not recommending it, but I'm saying you should look into it. It can help with sleep. It can help with a lot of things. It was, it was one of the herbs described by Gerard. He got all his illustrations that he used in his book from Jacobus Theodorus Tabor Montanus, great botanist, you know. So it's been known for a long time. But Gerard said of it, it was good against the infirmities of the heart. He's saying this in Elizabethan English. I am diverse commended against the infirmities of the heart. Okay, it's good for heart trouble. Let's just go with that. I'm going to try to translate a little here as we go. He said it is judged to be so forcible, it's so powerful, that it took its name as cardiaca of the effect, meaning it has a strong effect on the heart. So do some other members of the mint family. My favorite is bugleweed, Ajuga repens. I'm actually gathering it right now. I gather it every spring. It slows and strengthens the heart rate and can help with arrhythmia. It can help with high blood pressure, and it's just a really good sedative. It can help with sleep, and it can help with nervous tension, and it can help with tight muscles and all that. Really, yeah, Ajuga repens and Leonurus have a lot of similar properties, and that's one that's considered a weed. The Ajuga bugleweed is what it's usually called. You can find it wild, growing right now. Go out and harvest the flowering tops if you want to try that herb. Again, I'm not recommending it, or I never recommend anything. I'm just giving you information, right? He said motherwort was good for convulsions and cramps. That's another reason it's good for the menstrual type issues, because it's an antispasmodic herb. So is bugleweed. So is viburnum. We discussed many herbs like that. He said it would open the obstructions or stopping of the entrails. In other words, it helps with constipation. And he said it also had an effect against intestinal worms. So it has some vermifuge properties, as we call it. The herb was given in wine. That is the most traditional way to use it, and would help bring on menstruation. It was an emmenagogue. He said it would help promote the monthly courses. So you can see why this is so much associated as a woman's herb, but again, it's good for everybody. And it had some wound healing properties. He said it was especially good for green wounds, that would be infected wounds, certain diseases in cattle, also good for coughs, So much, she said, that the diverse husbandman oftentimes much desires it. And by that he meant it was good for coughs in cattle as well as in the cattle rancher or farmer. Anyway, it's some of this. I love these old books. I mean, they're so beautifully written, but it does take a little, sometimes it can be a little hard to figure out. Um, let's see, Culpeper, about 100 years later, said that it was an herb of Venus, which he meant as a woman's herb. But it was also under Leo, which I guess, I don't know, because it was Leonorus, I have no idea. I don't get into astrology. I know plenty of people do, and they could probably tell me more about it than I know. I don't really have an interest, in all honesty. I don't wish to predict the future. I think it would be absolutely horrible to know what's going to happen. That's just me. There is no better herb to take melancholy vapors from the heart. Okay, he meant an oppressed or stressed, sad heart. He said again, there is no better herb to take melancholy vapors from the heart and to strengthen it and to make it merry, cheerful, blithe. Okay, this is an herb that's very good for melancholy or mild depression, especially, again, hormonal depression. This is really one of those herbs that a lot of young women should have on hand. So many, so many have asked me questions. They have depression or anxiety. Some of them really have really hard times, and doctors put them on pretty heavy medication that often makes things a lot worse. And I never give them advice because it's not what I do. I say, here's some information you want to take a look at. And they do. And they come back a couple months later and say, oh, wow, I'm feeling so much better. I'm not getting all anxious. I'm not getting all upset. I'm not getting angry. I'm not getting depressed. I'm not having such bad cramps. I'm not having such, the whole bit. And yeah, there are several herbs, probably a dozen, that I give them information and say, just take a look at this. And, I wish I had known, well, anyway. I've known some that had, serious issues to the point, one of them was even clinically diagnosed and will probably suffer issues throughout the rest of her life because a psychiatrist, instead of saying, maybe your hormones are a little off, said she was insane. And so she'll probably never be able to own a firearm or, I don't know, she can even drive a car. And if she had just had access to some herbs, maybe it could have helped. That's a regret. I wish I had, but you don't know what you know until you know it, right? Anyway, he said it makes women joyful, especially mothers of children. It settles their womb as they should be, and therefore we call it Motherwort. It is held to be in much use for the trembling of the heart palpitations, in other words, faintings and swoonings, from which it took the name cardiaca. The power thereof to the quantity of a spoonful drunk in wine, again, he's infusing the herb in wine, is wonderful to help women in their sore travail and also for the suffocating risings of the mother. I'm not even going to begin to try to figure out what he means by a suffocating rising, but I think it may be the swooning faintness they used to call hysteria. So I guess I did begin, but I don't know for sure. He said it likely took the name of Motherwort for that reason. It also provokes urine in women's courses. Again, we're talking menstruation. Cleanses the chest of cold phlegm. It's a very good expectorant herb. And he again said it kills worms in the belly, so it was a good vermifuge herb. Again, any herb that says it's a vermifuge, super dangerous for pregnant women. So again, I'm just going to say once again, don't use this herb if you're pregnant. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to kill your child. It's not going to be good. Okay. By the time we get to Miss Grieve, she gives some very interesting history. She goes back to the 14th century. She says that old writers tell us there is no better herb for strengthening and gladdening the heart, good against hysterical complaints, and especially palpitations of the heart when they arise from hysteric causes. Again, we're basically talking PMS, but it could just be anxiety. Remember, this is not just an herb for women. Women and men experience anxiety, although, women are more prone to anxiety because of the certain properties of estrogen. Testosterone tends to make a man calm and confident and strong. On the other hand, the opposite hormone, the estrogen, the progesterone, all that, does tend to, and I don't think this should be controversial. I think everybody would agree that the hormonal changes that women experience do tend more toward anxiety. Men don't suffer that because of the testosterone. But anyway, at least since the 1400s, this was known as the very best herb. Now, I should also mention that testosterone levels in men have dropped by more than 50% in the past 20 to 30 years. Probably because of all the plastics in our environment. Plastics have chemical estrogens. Sperm counts are dropping. Testosterone is dropping. You can look at our culture and see what's going on. We've got a lot of, it started in the 90s with the metrosexuals. Yeah. I am a traditional, conservative, Catholic, masculine man. I am going to try very hard here not to be offensive to the modern soy boy. But soy also actually contains estrogens. That could be another reason. We've got a lot of scrawny, skinny, effeminate, weak men these days who are absolutely ruining our society. They will likely experience a lot of anxiety as well because they've screwed up all their hormones with the plastics in our drinking water. Not just bottled water, but the plastic pipes coming into the buildings that bring in the municipal water. The plastics that they're exposed to every day on their computers and the artificial foods and all that soy and corn syrup even can throw off the hormones. People are either men these days. Yeah, okay. I'm in my 40s now. I can say young men are not very masculine. Many of them. Some of them are. Plenty of them are. But more and more I'm seeing guys that are fat, weak, or skinny and weak. And, look y'all, if we got to go fight the Chinese or the Russians soon, we're in bad shape. But anyway, I am just that aside. And yes, I know I probably offended a whole lot of people. But y'all soy boys, and you need to get a good grass-fed steak and start doing some squats and man up a little bit because somebody's got to protect yourself, protect your wife, protect your kids, protect your family, protect your country. And you're not going to do it if your trembling hands can't even hold a pistol or throw a punch. Anyway, you don't need to be experiencing anxiety. If you man up a little bit, you won't. But if you can't, or if you haven't, and some people absolutely can't. There are certainly people born with a more effeminate nature, lower testosterone. I'm certainly not passing judgment or casting aspersions. Everyone is different. I just happen to be a big, 6'4", 210 pounds lean, 220 usually, Southern man. You may be a person of a smaller frame and smaller build and more delicate nature, and if that's how God made you, hey, great. I want you to be as happy and successful and have the most wonderful life you can possibly have. And quite frankly, my ancestors fought and died so you can do that. So I'm not going to try to take it away from you. But if you are one of a nervous disposition, as I said, that does not necessarily mean a woman. There are many men of a nervous disposition. There are many men who experience anxiety and fear and all that. Motherwort, Leonoris cardiaca, it's been used for centuries. Again, I'm not recommending anything. Just look it up and make your own decision. Make an informed decision. But I definitely get off the soy and bottled water where you. If you're not comfortable hunting, find a friend who's a deer hunter. The reason I'm saying this is because we're feeding our cattle on so much soy. The meat that we are eating now, if you buy store-bought meat, and fowl and everything, chicken and whatever you eat, they're getting so much soy in their diet, it's increasing the estrogen in the meat, just like they're being given a lot of antibiotics and other pharmaceutical drugs. I cannot say, go eat a fast food hamburger and you're going to be a burly, strapping man. No, it may actually have the opposite effect. So if you have a friend who's a hunter and you can start eating some deer meat, bear meat is fantastic. look, we'll get into that another day, but people talk bad about bear meat, and it's actually wonderful when handled properly. And, you know, certainly pork is probably even a bigger issue than cattle because everyone wants their hogs to be fat. You know, increasing the estrogen increases the fat. You know, that's actually why they, you know, one of the reasons they castrate a lot of pigs, well, and cows. And so, but you know, aggression is one issue, but it also makes them more fat and tender. I'm just saying, if you can't take up hunting yourself, you probably want to find a friend who does hunt and learn to eat wild game. And, you know, if you're not comfortable with that, and really you should, we can have that conversation another day. It's a hunter's bullet is actually the most humane death an animal will experience. True. Yeah, life's not Disney. Animals don't die of old age in nature. They're usually, they lose a step, they get a little old, they get a little sick, and they're either eaten up by parasites or ripped apart alive by coyotes or something. A hunter's bullet is actually the most humane death an animal in the wilderness will experience, and far better than factory farming. But if you're not comfortable with that, you're going to have to cough up some more money and get some grass-fed beef. Get some naturally raised chicken. Get some naturally raised, preferably heritage pork. The heritage pork is so much tastier and healthier than most, and again, I'm talking more the factory farming than the small farming, most hogs. So anyway, let's get back to Motherwort. Miss Grieve said specific medicinal actions and uses. Diaphoretic means it's good for a fever. Antispasmodic, which means it's going to help with the cramping and muscle spasms. This is another herb that's really good for just muscle pain, tight neck muscles, headaches. Another reason many women find it useful is it helps with headaches. It's a tonic. Nervine, the tonic, I think in this case, she may be saying cardiotonic and it calms the heart, or because it is in the mint family and it's a bitter herb, she may mean a stomach tonic, you know, a digestive tonic. I don't know. She may just mean an overall tonic because the next word is nervine. Nervine means it calms the nerves. Amenagog means it brings on menses. Motherwort is especially valuable in female weaknesses and disorders, hence the name, allaying nervous irritability and inducing quiet and passivity of the entire nervous system. Now, how many prescription drugs claim to do the same thing with horrible side effects? This is so important. I'm just going to emphasize, look into this, because while you may make light of, like, you know, premenstrual issues and such, as I said, one of the dearest women in my life actually was committed because no one helped her out when she needed it. Ostracized from her family, was actually accused of having almost like psychotic episodes or schizophrenic episodes when really things were just spinning out of control and she was physically incapable and not mentally and emotionally mature enough to handle it. Beautiful, wonderful ex-girlfriend that, you know, I miss dearly. Anyway, that was years ago. Like I said, before I knew about Motherwort, I wish someone had known about that for her. Getting up to modern use, Plants for the Future says Motherwort is especially valuable in the treatment of female weakness and disorders, allaying nervous irritability, inducing quiet and passivity of the whole nervous system. Well, they're just quoting directly from Miss Grieve, aren't they? It is seen as a great remedy for, well, it is seen as a remedy for heart palpitations. I added the word great because it really is good. It has a strengthening effect, especially on a weak heart. That's a cardiotonic. As I said, it actually strengthens and slows the heart rate, just like a Juga repens. Hawthorn has a similar effect. Very interesting herbs. They're so, well, in my opinion, again, my seldomly humble opinion, so much safer than modern medicines. Cardiotonic herbs, you should have one at least growing in your garden. Motherwort, Ajuga repens, riptans, I think ajuga riptans, bugleweed. Hawthorn is fantastic. And hawthorn is probably the most studied ancient go-to herb. It was actually at one time the symbol of Christianity, yeah, especially Catholicism. See, St. Joseph's staff was said to be made of hawthorn. And it's sort of like the proto-Christian Christmas tree. Eventually Christianity took on the spruce to basically help Scandinavian and Germanic pagans feel more comfortable with Christian ceremonies. The regular Christmas tree. Originally, it was a hawthorn. And actually, when President Kennedy was assassinated, the Queen of England sent a hawthorn to be planted by his grave as a beautiful sign of unity between countries and two different denominations. So really, I criticize the English royalty quite a bit, and I know I upset a lot of people when I do that, but that was a very kind gesture, and I think it's really a tradition we need to bring back because hawthorn is such a wonderful plant, so healthy, so absolutely just one of the best herbs there is. But anyway. The antispasmodic and sedative effects promote relaxation rather than drowsiness. The leaves are antispasmodic, astringent, cardiac, diaphoretic, emmenagogue, nervine, sedative, stomatic, tonic, and uterine stimulant. Another reason you don't want to take it when you're pregnant because it is uterine stimulant. Actually, a reason people who might want to become pregnant might want to look into that herb. I won't go into detail there. They are taken internally in the treatment of heart complaints, notably palpitations, and problems associated with menstruation, childbirth, and menopause, especially of a nervous origin. Although an infusion can be used, the taste is so bitter that the plant is usually made into a conserve or syrup. Actually, traditionally, it's been more often included in wine or beer, actually. It's actually been one of the plants used to bitter beer. The plant has been found effective in the treatment of functional heart complaints due to autonomic imbalance and also as an anti-thyroid treatment, though it needs to be taken for several months for these effects to be noticed. It's for a hyperactive thyroid. The whole herb is harvested in August when in flower and dried for later use. They say it should not be prescribed in the earlier stages of pregnancy or where periods are heavy. A homeopathic remedy is made from the plant used in treatment of heart complaints, amenorrhea, menopausal problems, and flatulence. So many of the same effects, actually, even in the homeopathy world. There's this awful commercial I've mentioned so many times that comes on the radio. I listen to a lot of talk radio. I'm sure you're surprised about that, right? Anyway, the guy's selling insurance, and the catchphrase is, he understands because he's on meds too. He has diabetes, heart disease, etc., high blood pressure, and all that. I'm sure this guy's insurance is a good deal. I'm not going to say the name, but I'm sure it's just a wonderful deal and the best thing out there. But wouldn't it be a whole lot better to have a few herbs you could take so you wouldn't have to be on all those meds too? Well, Motherwort is one you could plant and have in your garden, and it's very easy to use and very easy to grow. It's in the mint family. It's pretty darn hard to go wrong with the mints. Considering that one of the leading causes of death in America is overprescription, maybe a better option, right? I'm just going to say, y'all make some mac and cheese and grow some motherwort, and this is actually a really good time of year to plant it. Enjoy your garden and enjoy your family, enjoy the people you're with, and keep your head up, keep your chin up, and your head down, as a friend of mine used to say. Keep your head up and your chin down. No, that's not it. Keep your chin up and your head down. He was an old veteran. That was something he used to say when he was in, I think, Korea. He'd say, keep your chin up and your head down, meaning don't get your head shot off. Don't take any unnecessary risks, but keep your chin up and a smile on your face. So anyway, y'all, it's as always a crazy old world. It's getting crazier. Yesterday, somebody told me the Chinese might sell the $1 trillion worth of bonds that they own at a 90% discount. What does that mean? That means in the blink of an eye, bond market could crash through the absolute floor, which would destroy our economy. They're also working and being very successful in getting the the petrodollar. That's what the value of petroleum, oil, whatever, natural gas is marked to. You use dollars, U.S. dollars, ever since World War II, ever since America became the dominant political and military economic power in the world. Oil and all petro products have been marked to the U.S. dollar. Well, the Chinese have teamed up with the Russians and now the Iranians and the Saudis, and who knows who else. I think even Venezuela and some other countries, and they're going to have it traded on the yuan, which means if the rest of the world goes that way, which why wouldn't they? We're certainly looking weak and feckless, maybe because men aren't manly as they should be anymore. And you would see it at the gas station in the blink of an eye. Overnight, gas could go up 3 to 5 times, 3 to 500%, right? I mean, like we're paying $3.50 now, it could be $9, $12, $15 the very next day. That would throw inflation up in the food market. Essentially, within a few days, you're not going to have to worry about runs on the bank because there's not going to be anything for sale in the stores. There's not going to be any gas in the pumps. The entire economy would become cashless. It doesn't matter if you have gold or a crypto coin. You wouldn't be able to go into a grocery store and buy something with it. You still have to turn it into dollars, and your dollars would be worthless. It would just be a hypothetical investment. That's why I always say buy land, grow stuff, figure out how to be resilient. That's my whole philosophy. But as scary as that is, maybe you want to have some Motherwort on hand. Maybe you want to have some Leonurus cardiaca in there. So, if that happens and people start jumping out of windows on Wall Street like they did in the stock market crash of the 20s, you don't go there, right? So keep your head down and your chin up. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble getting that in the right order today. But regardless, y'all, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.